Niantic sends trainers into uproar with Pokemon Go update that makes avatars look androgynous. I've seen what they've done, and androgynous is not the word that I would use. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to the GNRO Minicast. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drak. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And once again, we have another awesome episode, or another awesome article from boundingintocomics.com, but with Ryan Pearson as the writer of the article. So let's go ahead and get into this recent controversy with Pokemon Go. Players of Pokemon Go are objecting en force after an update to avatar customization has left them feeling ugly, quite literally and figuratively. Prior to the update, the avatar had a male or a female base. Players could then choose from a variety of skin tones, hair colors, hairstyles, and eye colors. Basically, a very basic character creation suite. And new sliders to adjust height, weight, more. Adjustments to the chest slider increased or decreased the size of breasts as opposed to pectoral muscles. The preview fell flat with players, though. What's happened to the female avatar's figure? Why now so masculine? As the tweet from @ColdDarkParks balked. If this is permanent, looks like my days of spending on avatar items are over, the user declared, sharing comparison pictures of the changes the new model or the new update made to his avatar. And well, get used to seeing a lot of this, boys and girls, because this is a lot of the problems that have been coming out of this Pokemon Go update. By comparison, the original female avatar appeared to have a slimmer waist and larger hips. Speaking to other user, ColdDarkParks claimed adjusting the slider did not help. We also have one from Black Cat Dandy, who summarized how many users felt about the preview. Well, Pokemon Go players are having a bad day. Niantic silently released an update that changed everyone's avatars for the worst, removing paid poses and items, all because they wanted to add more diverse character customization. Wah, wah, wah. DEI, killing games since, well, for quite a while now. It should be noted, while some avatars presented glitches when wearing certain items, paid items were not removed from accounts en masse. Further, the most egregious examples were edited by users, as it seems the avatar's default state was set to all sliders was to set all sliders to 50%. Nonetheless, female avatars were seen with less pronounced hips, which again, these are female defining characteristics. If you're going to change that stuff, it has got DEI written all over it, whether you like it or not. Some appear to be in the default male pose rather than the female one. Male avatars featured a softer face, and there was a general dissatisfaction with how clothes looked on the new awkward frames. And of course, you can't even call them male and female anymore. It is body type 1 and body type 2, because DEI ruins everything they touch. This writer also attempted to recreate the original default female avatar after the update went live for all users. Even with the appropriate sliders set to minimum and maximum, the new avatar could not have a waist as thin or hips as wide as the original female avatar. In other words, you're no longer allowed to have feminine features on female characters anymore. Gee, I wonder if this has been a constant problem with a lot of the game companies I've been featuring on the minicast recently. On April 15th, developer Niantic rolled out their Rediscover Go campaign, bringing new features to welcome back players and give current ones an improved experience. The first part of this was improved avatar customization, and on the 17th, Niantic proudly declared that trainers, your avatar can now look even more like you! We're excited to announce that new avatar customization options are now live in Pokemon Go. And that did not work out for them in the slightest. Instead of promoting the game, Niantic's tweet kicked the hornet's nest. I like how you actually put that, Ryan. Prompting players to give their feedback unfiltered. Players showcased avatars with lifeless expressions, awkward stances, ashy skin, and removing buttocks to the point of it looking unnatural. And frankly, if you're seeing some of the pictures here, the comparison to a lot of cartoony characters is accurate. On top of that, there were glitches. Avatars set to have the maximum fatness would clip through their own clothes because, well, we want to be able to showcase a muffin top? I don't know anymore. Headphones denting the avatar's skull. Oh, that sounds painful. Avatars turning bow-legged, or chunks of the model and textures being absent. Even when the avatars work as intended, users mocked or amused by maximum fat characters, others genuinely happy of the additional body types. Yeah, and they were very few, by the way. A lot of the people that were happy about this, yeah, they got screamed down by all the people that weren't. Some shared the image of 3 female avatars, comparing them to a clip from the Powerpuff Girls, when 3 men try to look like the titular little girls. And yeah, it's an accurate assessment. Including a much shared image of a female avatar wearing Mewtwo-inspired clothing with an unflattering before and after comparison that captures nigh all of the complaints. At Luke Von Karma implored, if you want context on how terrible this change was, look at this update Pokemon Go did to avatars in the game, which basically is you can't tell if it's male or female anymore, and I know exactly why they did this, because DEI and trans agenda and all that bullshit. Just question, how many trans players actually do play Pokemon Go? How many trans people are actually in existence? Are they the majority? I'm gonna guess not. So why are we trying to make characters look like a minority of the gaming populace? That's not how a business should be running things. Sorry guys, I want everybody to be able to be represented, but we have to be logical about it. I hate to be like, lol, looks like AI art, but it's pretty horrendous. The user went on, adding, Pokemon Go, please reverse this horrible update. There hasn't been a Japanese IP that has undergone more westernization than Pokemon, lamented Twitter user Political Awake. Literally, one of the most appealing things in Pokemon, besides the Pokemon themselves, is the anime stylized trainers. The Twitter user then pointed out, realism equals the death of escapism. Which I would actually agree with that assessment, because really, when we try to play games like Pokemon, we are trying to escape from the mundaneness of regular everyday life. Why the fuck would you want to bring everyday life into your escapist fiction? You're not actually able to capture Pikachus. So why does it have to look realistic? It doesn't. As long as you stay within the art style, it's perfectly fine. Pokemon YouTuber Lewtu also shared a selection of upset players. A mere fraction of what they'd seen, it got bigger. Literally every Pokemon Go post over the last 24 hours that has felt like a fucking funeral. This shit is unreal, man. And it just highlights a lot of the tweets that people were making that were very much upset. In fact, some of the players that I know that play Pokemon Go have quit because of this. Like, they literally hated the update and have basically said it killed the game for them. And thus, they have no reason to continue to participate in any of the Pokemon Go-based events. Back in late March, Lewtu had highlighted how many players had negatively responded to Pokemon Go's Twitter account for literal years, alongside alleged bots, long before this recent controversy. And this is where Mark Kern steps in, aka Grums, former Blizzard Entertainment team lead and producer turned consumer advocate, highlighted how players wanted fantasy ideals. It's escapism. Why do we want realism in this? And that ugly avatars were not inclusive like Niantic may have hoped. Kern went on to place the blame on DEI and ESG initiatives. These are in no way a good thing for the gaming industry. They should not be allowed. They do not help things. They are not diverse. They are not equitable. They are not inclusive. They are basically trying to implement stupid bullshit ideas that China has done that don't work. I don't know why we continue to go down this path, but we're continuing to beat our heads against the wall doing it. How about we stop? The Pokemon Go avatar changes are pissing off all real women who got their trainers destroyed by unnecessary DEI changes. This wasn't to appeal to women. It already appealed to women. DEI and ESG initiatives ruin games and will cost Pokemon Go millions. No butts, no weight, no hips, and here's a Chad jaw. because that's the new thing that we have to do. We have to put in male jaws on female characters. Why? Because they might look trans. Again, how big is the trans audience compared to the majority of gamers? I'm gonna guarantee you the real women audience are bigger than the trans audience. Sorry, not meaning to piss you off, but facts are facts, whether you like them or not. Kern went on to highlight the Niantic being based in San Francisco, typically left-leaning city in support of DEI, which is why I've been screaming a lot of game companies that are in the California sector need to get out, because that bubble is literally killing them. The developer having worked with consultancy from firm GamerX, and the Pokemon Company seeking a DEI director. By the way, I should point out that the team that worked on this since then, as well as that DEI director, they no longer work with Niantic. Funniest thing. They found the GamerX consultancy firm found their doors closed after this. I wonder why. Oh, because Niantic and the Pokemon Company found that it pissed off everybody, and thus they need to change direction and probably start looking to fix a lot of these updates. A high-ranking Niantic employee issued a staff-to-fan website, Pokemon Go Hub. We're sending all of your feedback to the product team and the folks who worked on the Avatar system, except that studio doesn't exist anymore. We're taking this seriously and really appreciate your sharing your candid personal opinions / follower opinions. And I should point out that as of when I'm recording this, they still haven't implemented any fixes to my knowledge. So at that point, that shows just how PR that response was. However, that may not be entirely the case. In an interview with the Reddit The Sylph Road, self-declared Reddit's #1 spot for Pokemon Go discoveries and research, an alleged member of a feedback server who was only addressed as JD, John Doe, claims Niantic knew about the issues before launch. What's more, they may be unlikely to do anything about it. And like I said, as of right now, they still haven't done anything about it. JD explained feedback server was started 2 years ago by Niantic's UX and UI development team, with JD joining at its inception. The server was made of around 1,000 players of all different kinds, casual, serious, etc., to test everything Niantic. While they provided feedback on features and mechanics, they had no idea how they would be implemented into Niantic games, including many tests, features centering around VR, and 3D scanning for an app, Scaniverse. Strict NDAs also prevented discussion of these studies, even within the group. So it tells me like a big fat nothing burger was happening throughout all of this. Despite this, JD alleges, we need the PR voice, boys and girls. We openly discuss / brainstorm needed features and improvements which have in the past been properly documented before submitting. I'm guaranteeing you they haven't been documented in the slightest. This is just what a bunch of butthurt terminally online people want. And thus, because they have access to the developer and you don't, you filthy bigot, they're gonna go ahead and pump their agenda down your throat, whether you like it or not. These became many of the quality of life features in Pokemon Go, including the ready button for raid battles, a less cluttered research menu, longer lasting item buffs, and more in-person raid bonuses. Even so, JD explains, since we got no follow-on feedback of any kind from them, it is hard to say if any were results from the group or not. You can't say that and you were part of it. Then it tells me that it's not a very good group for what you're intending it to be. So obviously, I wouldn't rely on it whatsoever. Discussions about the Avatar update being over a year ago with questionnaires, followed by beta testing in December 2023 and January 2024. JD claims, there is very, very little improvement / change since the beta version to what we all have now. It was a surprise to see them announcing the full rollout date when we were still on what was thought to be an unpolished beta version, which turns out is what we all got at the end. Okay, I get it. JD, you're trying to say that this is, basically the bullshit that you've been dealing with. I wouldn't have relied on this group whatsoever. I don't know why Niantic did, and I don't know why the Pokemon Company was okay with that. Because it sounds to me like a whole lot of nothing sauce happened in there. Even after the backlash, JD further asserts,
No formal request for further studies or feedbacks has been made to suggest they're looking to do any major updates to these avatars besides fixing the many genuine glitches/errors. The group has been vocal of their disappointment with this rollout, and with one participant, quote, ashamed to be part of the study when this is the result.
Gee, I'd be upset too, because this basically wrecked the game that I wanted to play. The group have since brainstormed, discussed, and analyzed in detail the specific issues of these avatars and forward these feedbacks, but they are unsolicited feedbacks, meaning they are not being asked for in a formal... geez, that's not a good sentence being written. Been asked for in a formal setting, and feedbacks, suggestions are given without compensated, JD reveals. Yeah, it sounds to me like a whole lot of shit was happening in this particular forum, and it was worthless. So why were you participating in it? Because it sounds to me like they didn't even give a shit what you actually had to say if you were genuinely there to help out the development team. Current live studies are all based on live AR applications, which looks to be used across all titles, Pokémon Go, Pikmin, and Monster Hunter Now, as it has gathered players from all of them to participate. If it's Pokemon focused, why does it have these other games? That just muddies the water. Don't do that shit. If you want to have just like a generalized AR one, just do r/AR and have that. But if you're wanting feedback on your specific game, why are we getting feedback for Pikmin app and Monster Hunter Now? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Most recently, sponsored gifts were updated to use AR, asking players to use their camera to select where a tiny airship drops a package of items. Okay. When asked, it felt like communication was one way, like most of these do, and that their feedback didn't feel considered. Yes, very much so. And I would agree with that, but it sounds to me like this whole adventure was pointless to begin with. At the start, there was a back and forth discussions and feedbacks with the staff members on the server, but they're frustrated too when upcoming test study features go live without tests being conducted, or certain ones getting constantly delayed before again going live without the server having the chance to conduct the test/feedback. I would drop this group. If you were part of it and this is what was going on, I wouldn't have even been there a week because I would have seen the writing on the wall. Obviously, Niantic isn't really looking at this as a means to be able to get player feedback. They are just going to do what the fuck they want to do. So they stopped announcing studies of features ahead of time, and gradually communication from them in the server became zero, which should have been when all of you left. You do feel sorry for them. No, I don't. Working in these conditions, higher management will do what they want and drive data to fit their own vision. No, as soon as I saw that there was going to be no communication whatsoever, I would have dropped the place and I would have immediately started questioning everything that Niantic was doing, because it looks like they weren't interested in player feedback from all that this article is showcasing in the chain of events. And we even actually have a lot of this stuff from the interview with JD. Despite all the outrage, Pokemon Go's community manager did address the update. MX Kestrel Riot Go Rocket Boss did say, I've been readied and building notes, but I'd love to hear what folks think. Oh, really? You really would? Some caveats. Cruelty gets ignored. Well, then at that point, you are immediately going to get ignored if you have any kind of constructive feedback whatsoever, because it's going to literally be considered cruelty and thus thrown out. I immediately would throw this guy out the window too. Critical of specific feedback is on what isn't working. What isn't working is great, but you've already said you would rule that out as cruelty. So saying what you like is just as important as what you don't like. I want both. And something tells me that you listen to none of them in the way that you pointed this out. Side note here too, diversity means everyone. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Stop lying to yourself. So your feedback is valuable. No, it's not. Regardless of who you are. No. I immediately would write this guy off just right off the bat. It seemed the vast majority was respectful, but insistent on what was and wasn't working, many begging for the old avatars to return. Thanks for all the feedback. I appreciate the critical thoughts, and I've circulated it back to the team, which means they probably haven't. Shutting replies off on that post for now. Yeah, I'm guaranteeing you none of that got back to Niantic, because it already sounds to me like this guy blew you all off. So, my thoughts on the whole avatar situation. This is a blunder of epic proportions, and it is going to haunt the Pokemon Company for the majority of this year if not longer, unless they start reversing the changes. Now, as I've said, since then, GamerX, the consultancy firm that was working on this, no longer works on this. So at that point, that tells me they're really not going to do anything about it, and they deserve to have a massive exodus from the Pokemon Go platform. Which is sad, because I know a lot of people really did like Pokemon Go, and it actually did inspire some good things, like getting out and walking, and getting to know people. But unfortunately, Pokemon Go also had a lot of other issues when it came to some of their fan-hosted events and their raid battles and everything like that, so it just sounds to me like, you know, it's finally Pokemon Go's time to walk off into the sunset. And that's sad, because I know a lot of people liked it. But overall, do I see them fixing a lot of this shit? No, I really don't. If they do, I mean, I'll happily eat crow, but it sounds to me, just given what I've gotten from this article, they have no intention of fixing anything. They don't think that they've done anything wrong. So with that being said, what do you guys think about this whole situation? Were you a Pokemon Go player, and now are you still because of the androgynous update that you got? Thankfully, I can say I wasn't a fan, because I'm a Pokemon fan, but more of the JRPGs, not of any additional other content. So at that point, I feel bad for you, but if you're a fan, feel free to leave a comment down below and explain where you're at in this discussion. And if you like the video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, because it definitely helps out with the YouTube algorithms and teaches YouTube that other opinions are actually helpful and aren't going to destroy you for existing. So in the meantime, that'll go ahead and do it for me. Special thanks over to Bounding Into Comics and Ryan Pearson for the article, and I will catch you guys next time for the next GNRO Minicast. Until then, take care, my friends.